Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today I'm going to do another video from the book that I mentioned in prior video, The World's Greatest Letters. And today is one that folks probably are somewhat familiar of. This letter was actually mentioned in the movie Save It Private Ryan. That's a movie that Tom Hanks was in, Vin Diesel, a bunch of other folks, about World War II. And in that, the subject of the movie is they were going after a Private Ryan to save him because his brothers were killed in the war, that being World War II. But they pulled up this letter as a reference in that story, which was pretty cool. And this letter went to Miss Lydia Bixby. And it was written by Abraham Lincoln on the loss of her 5 sons in the Civil War. So back then it was a little different than now. Now they won't put siblings in the same unit. They will spread them out because supposedly that's supposed to give a higher survival statistic. So this is actually one of the most quoted letters in history. Viscount Bryce said of it, "I do not know where the nobility of self-sacrifice for a great cause and the consolation which the thought of a sacrifice so made should bring, is set forth which such simple and pathetic beauty. Deep must be the fountains from which there are issues to pure a stream." Carl Sandburg has said of it, more darkly than the Gettysburg speech, the letter wove its awful implication that the human freedom was so often paid for with absolute agony. In these words, Lincoln performed a rite, managing language as though he might be a ship captain at midnight by lantern light, dropping black roses into the immemorial sea for mystic remembrance and consecration. Here was a piece of the American Bible. A lot of the American writings, the historical writings specifically, are called the American Bible. Bible means volumes, right? So the American Bible would be things like the Articles of Confederation, the Constitution, and the Federalist Papers. It is interesting to compare this Lincoln letter with the one that Kaiser Wilhelm is reputed to have sent on a somewhat similar occasion to the mother whose 9 sons had fallen on the field of battle. The emperor wrote, "His Majesty and the Kaiser hears that you have sacrificed 9 sons in defense of the fatherland in the present war. His Majesty is immensely gratified at the fact, and in the recognition is pleased to send to you his photograph with the frame and autograph signature." Miss Bixby first came to the attention of President Lincoln in the bitter year of 1864. When 1864 was drawing to a close, Governor Andrew of Massachusetts wrote him about the case of the widow living at 15 Dover Street in Boston. According to the information he had received from his state assistant general, William Schuyler, she had sent 5 sons into the Union armies, and all 5 had been killed in action. 2 years before, the governor had given her $40 to defray her traveling expenses for a hospital visit with one of these wounded sons. The adjutant general's report stated, "About 10 days ago, Miss Bixby came to my office and showed me 5 letters from 5 company commanders, and each letter informed her, this poor woman, of the death of one of her sons. So all 5 letters were sent by different company commanders saying, 'This son is dead.' Her last remaining son was recently killed in the fight on the Weldon Railroad." Carl Sandburg has pointed out the thought that this document came to Lincoln in mid-October of that same crucial year in the nation's major political crisis. He characteristically refrained from writing an immediate letter to Miss Bixby that might have been made public for campaign purposes. Instead, he waited until November 21 and then wrote the following letter, which he had forwarded to her through the War Department and the adjutant General Schuyler. This is Washington, November 21st, 1864, from the Executive Mansion. To Miss Bixby, Boston, Massachusetts. Dear Madam, I have been shown in the files of the War Department a statement from the Adjutant General of Massachusetts that you are the mother of 5 sons who have died gloriously on the field of battle. I feel how weak and fruitless must be any word of mine which should attempt to beguile you from the grief of loss so overwhelming. But I cannot refrain from tendering you a consolation that you may be found in the thanks of the Republic that they died to save. I pray that our Heavenly Father may assuage you of the anguish of your bereavement and leave you only the cherished memory of the loved and lost, and the solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom. Yours very sincerely and respectfully, President Abraham Lincoln. So it may come as a shock to some readers to learn that this masterpiece of compassion was not completely based in fact. Someone had blundered and Lincoln was misinformed. In the first place, it appears from later military researches that Miss Bixby originally protested against the enlistment of her sons in the Civil War. Furthermore, all 5 did not die gloriously on the field of battle. Sergeant Charles Bixby was killed in action at Fredericksburg. Private Oliver Bixby was killed in action at Petersburg. Henry was taken prisoner, exchanged, and returned to his mother in good health. George deserted to the enemy, and Edward had not only deserted but fled the country. His mother swore that he had enlisted against her will at the age of 16 and that he had periods of insanity. His discharge papers were therefore authorized, but he deserted and went to sea before they were issued. The subsequent history of this letter, as recorded in Carl Sandburg's monumental biography of Abraham Lincoln, is extremely interesting. The President of the United States took Miss Bixby as a symbol and as a transfigured American mother who deserved enshrinement for loyalty and heroic service. It was just as well, perhaps, that no one recorded what Miss Bixby may have exclaimed as her eyes fluttered over the written words of the President of the United States. The letter was literary. She was literate, not literary. Her cue was silence. The Adjutant General Schuyler gave out a copy of the letter to the Boston newspapers. Before many weeks, it had been reprinted all over the world. Although later research had found errors in the first War Department's records, and thus changed the facts upon which Lincoln's consolatory letter to Miss Bixby was based, the substance, as Sandburg has pointed out, remains unchanged. Whether all 5 had died on the field of battle, or only 2, 4 of her sons had been poured away into the river of war, the 2 who had deserted were lost to her as though dead. The one who had returned alive had fought at Gettysburg. If sacrifice could be transmitted into cold figures, she deserved some kind of token, some award approaching the language Lincoln had employed. Lincoln was not deceived. The letter is now an incontestable part of America's heritage, but it's the Civil War's dark end. It was subject of raging controversy. Lincoln's enemies denounced it as a cheap and ostentatious blunder. One newspaper even asked why the president was shedding these tears for Miss Bixby's sons while his own 2 sons were kept in a home of luxury far, far away from the dangers of the battlefield. At the time, Tad Lincoln was 11 years old and Robert was 21, and as Sandburg says, his father was letting the mother of unsound mind have her way with the boy, and he should not go where he might be killed. So that kind of tells you a little bit about that story, that historical letter that we heard about in the movie, which was pretty fantastic way it's quoted. But I'll tell you, the words from Lincoln are still pretty powerful, and I think that the letter still serves its purpose. And anybody that's lost family members in the service of war, I think a letter of respect of that nature and that grandeur, I think it's perfectly appropriate. I'm Ben. If you enjoyed this content and content such as these, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'll do a few more videos out of this book because I'm actually enjoying it and I like reading these letters. And the way I do this channel is anything that I would study or read on my own, I just put on here. And then, of course, things and facts and items that I've been taught throughout my life, I try to put on here too that might be helpful to some other folks. So please like and subscribe. Be good.